The wind reaches you before anything else does, not as motion, but as presence, as if the earth itself draws a long breath and quietly refuses to give the warmth back. And here, in the vast silence of the Mongolian steppe, winter does not arrive the way we imagine it. It does not begin. It declares itself. Slowly at first, then all at once, until the entire horizon feels sealed beneath an invisible verdict and the temperature collapses toward 50 degrees below zero. What remains is a frozen ocean without waves. No trees to break the wind, no shelter to soften the cold, no bounded edge anywhere, only scale, only distance, only an endless and indifferent expanse that erases every sense of direction and every promise of safety. Even sound behaves differently here. It does not travel, it dissolves. Footsteps, breath, the far-off movement of animals, all of it is swallowed by the cold before it can ever become an echo. And yet, in this place that seems built to end life, a people did not merely endure. They built a way of living so complete, so precise, that when spring returned they left behind almost nothing at all. No ruins, no walls, no monuments to mark that they had ever fought and won here. And that raises a question worth holding on to until the very end. Why would a people who survived the cruelest ground on earth choose to leave no trace that they survived it? The answer begins with a single, unforgiving truth. Out here, you do not survive by resisting this land. You survive by understanding it faster than it can erase you. To the untrained eye, the steppe looks empty or flat, featureless, nothing stretching to the edge of the world. But that word, empty, misses the truth entirely. The steppe is not empty, it is stripped. Stripped of the trees that might have broken the wind. Stripped of the natural shelter that might have softened the cold. Stripped of anything that offers forgiveness when the weather turns against you. And what is left behind, once all of that is gone, is something far more demanding. Raw environmental logic, exposed without distraction, waiting to be read. Because the wind here does not move at random. It flows through invisible corridors carved by the land itself, gathering speed through low passes and breaking apart against unseen rises in the ground. The snow does not simply fall, it is negotiated by the terrain, pooling in some hollows, vanishing from others, quietly revealing a hidden structure beneath the white, a slight depression where the drifts collect. A ridge that lifts the wind and turns it upward, a slope facing south, catching the thin winter sun as though it were storing something precious. To an outsider, these are meaningless details. To the people of this land, they were instructions. And this reading was never learned from books, because there were none. It lived in the voice of a grandmother speaking beside the fire, in the way a father lifted his hand toward the horizon and named what the wind was about to do, in 1,000 small corrections passed down and remembered across generations. It was intelligence built not on observation alone, but on consequence. For out here, misreading the land was never a matter of hardship or discomfort. It was a matter of disappearance. The steppe did not punish mistakes, it erased them. By late autumn, movement across the steppe stops being travel in any ordinary sense. It becomes calculation. What looks to an outsider like a family simply wandering toward winter is, in truth, a precise equation being solved across miles of frozen silence, an equation with no room for a wrong answer. And they were searching for three things, all at once. First, protection from the Siberian wind, those invisible rivers of cold air that can strip the warmth from exposed skin in a matter of minutes. Second, a water source that stays within reach even after it freezes, because survival depends not on water existing somewhere, but on the ability to reach it every single day. And third, the most decisive of all, southern exposure, a face of land where even the weakest winter light can be caught and turned into the thin, vital margin of warmth that separates living from not. A place that satisfied all three was not found by luck. It was recognized read from the land by eyes trained across generations. Even the herds understood this rhythm. They moved ahead of the families in long, silent columns, and in their behavior they became something more than livestock. They became timing devices, their unease and their motion carrying the signal of a season about to close. Because the timing itself was a blade with two edges. Move too early, and the grass goes unused, nourishment wasted before the cold has even arrived. Move too late, and the snow does not fall as whether it falls as a door swinging shut, sealing every route of return. And so there came a moment, repeated every year, when the one who led the caravan simply stopped, stood still, Read the wind, the cloud, the color of the sky. And in that silence, an entire family placed its life upon a single, wordless decision. Because here, one misjudgment was never carried by one person alone. It was paid for by the whole bloodline. Once a winter camp was finally chosen, something quiet and remarkable began to happen. The single shelter, so vital while moving, lost its importance in isolation, because survival here was never about one structure standing alone against the cold. What mattered now was arrangement. The dwellings were set in a deliberate circle, and this was not decoration or symbol. It was physics made visible. The wind that had crossed the open steppe unopposed now met a closed perimeter, and instead of tearing through, it broke apart, circled, and lost its strength against the ring. Inside that boundary, something formed that could not exist in the open, a microclimate, warmer by only a few degrees. But out here, a few degrees was the entire distance between surviving the night and not. And the warmth did not come from fire alone. At the protected center, the herds were gathered close, hundreds of bodies pressed together, and their combined heat became something measurable, a living biological furnace. The animals were not merely owned. They were part of the engineering, their density calculated, their nearness turning breath and body into shared warmth, while the humans who depended on them returned that shelter in kind. And at the edge of this system stood its masterpiece, the felt dwelling, the ger. Its dome deflected the wind and spread the pressure evenly across its curve. Its walls, made of wool pressed and compressed, held thousands of microscopic pockets of trapped air pockets that did not conduct the cold but preserved the heat. Inside, a single fire drew air upward in a slow vertical current, pulling fresh oxygen in as warmth rose and escaped. The ger did not fight the cold, it regulated it. Because survival on the steppe was never the work of one, it was collective engineering, life arranged to protect life. And still, the greatest secret of all did not lie in the shelter itself. When darkness fell, survival shifted into its most intimate form. Families drew close together, not for comfort, but for physics. Bodies arranged to lose as little heat as possible. Every exposed surface minimized. Layers kept on through the night. The youngest and weakest animals were sometimes brought inside, not out of sentiment alone, but because a newborn creature was another quiet source of warmth when the temperature made its deepest fall. Sleep here was not surrender. It was a controlled vulnerability, a careful accounting of where heat was lost and where it could be saved, held steady while the steppe pressed on outside, toward absolute cold. And then, when spring finally came, the most extraordinary thing of all happened. Everything vanished. The dwellings were taken down, the materials carried away, and the land was left without a single scar, no ruins, no foundations, no monument to say that anyone had ever survived here. Which brings us back to the question we began with. Why would a people leave no trace of their triumph? The answer is quiet, and it is this. What they meant to pass on was never a structure. It was knowledge, living knowledge, carried inside the people themselves. The land kept no wound, but the memory never died. And perhaps that is the real lesson the steppe still offers us. That intelligence can outlast resistance, that adaptation can outperform control, that it is possible to survive without conquering anything at all, because these people never defeated the winter. They understood it so completely that it stopped being an enemy and became only a condition to be lived alongside. The true inheritance was never the shelter and never the craft. It was a way of thinking, and it may be the very thing our modern world has forgotten.